tie into the content that we're covering today. And this is for me as a coach, probably one of the most powerful chapters we have read in months, because it goes into truly the core of what is separating you from success. We talk all the time about goals. We talk all the time about actions, about activities. We talk about accountability. And yet all of that distills down to this chapter being, what are your standards? And I love that it gave clear, concise information on how to get to the answers on what your standards are, how to know, because we all have them. Every one of us here has a standard right now for everything in your life. And the $1 million question is, how's that working out for you? Are you ready to up the game on those? So that being said, man, great content, great elements, and it's your room, not mine. So who, as I put my readers on, is the first that wants to bring in some stuff right out of here? Josh, your mic is still hot and you were first in. So I'll honor that if you've got something. And then Celeste, you're going to be next.
Sure. I think you're a closet Alabama fan, Russ, because this is like the third book where they use Saban as an example in standards that we've read in the last 6 months. So I think, you pre-screen these books and go, you know what, that's a good example for us to learn from. I think one of the things that we were fortunate with getting into this business is you learn very early not to ever pre-qualify a buyer or a seller. That one of the reasons why I think I've got my first listing, I've got 2 or 3 coming together. But one of the things I said to the guy was, look, I'm not going to treat your $220,000 house we're going to sell any different than we would treat a $300,000 or $400,000 house. We still want to stage it. We still want to do photos. We still want to do a drone footage. I said, the difference is when somebody's looking for a price point of $200,000 and something, and you're the only one that sets the standard where people feel like they're being treated when they buy a $400,000 or $500,000 house, that delivers more money, quicker time frame, and more opportunities for you. And I think I was the only person that said that to him, because everybody else was like, well, we'll take a couple pictures and we'll throw a sign in the yard and we'll just go from there and see what happens. But if you treat everybody at the same level, and we were talking about the car business a minute ago, I treated 7 Series clients the same way I treated Mini Cooper or 3 Series clients. And as long as you always hold that standard, you're never going to catch yourself in a bind. And you'll never catch yourself pre-qualifying a kid who walks in with flip-flops, cut-off shorts, and a T-shirt that happens to have invented a $200 million app in the App Store and can buy whatever he wants.
Think about this for those standards too, because Josh actually hit 2 simultaneously: standards for how we're going to treat and interact people, and the standards for how we are going to promote our real estate, the standards for what we're going to do. And so many agents will adjust their standards based on price point.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite conversations when I'm talking to someone about what they'll do for money, and the higher you raise the money, the more they'll do. In other words, they can be bought. And those aren't truly standards. And so, by the way, one of my favorites I'll share with you guys, because you can write it down. This is a great one for listing presentations. Now, most real estate agents who list properties, their standard is what we lovingly call the 3 Ps of real estate. That's all they do. And of course, the question will come, what are the 3 Ps of real estate? Well, they'll put a sign in the yard, right? And they'll put the property into the local MLS, and then they'll pray that another agent does their job and actually gets it sold for them. Josh, on the other hand, is doing the 4th, 5th, 6 P. We can create some other P words around that, of all the other things that are his standard, no matter what the price point of the property. Pictures. That could be a P, by the way. I've never used that one before. Professional photography. 50 plus photos, drone footage. Man, that's awesome. So much he adds that is his standard. And so, for all of you, as we're talking about our standards today and raising them, what we'll tolerate, will you tolerate making a skinny profit on a low dollar property because you're going to stick to your standards? I recommend you do. Celeste, what do you have?
I love what Josh just said, and I also love what you just said. So I just typed it up in my notes of what I need to add to my listing presentation. And what I was going to add, because listening to Josh, it inspired me to realize I get a lot of response from other realtors when they call about my listings. And the first thing they always say is, "Thank you so much for answering your phone." And I wouldn't think that's a big deal because, like, wouldn't you answer your calls? But I don't think that's the norm in our industry. So that's number one. Number two is how I talk with the person. I always try and add their name to the conversation. And the response is, "You're so nice." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And I want to work with you." And I encourage people every single part of the conversation how easy it is to show my listings. And I want them to know in advance, I've done some real deep dive into this property with my client, and I'm providing a very nice detailed feature sheet. Look at the disclosures, you're going to see a full list of all the things my client has done to the property, and add extra things you may not have thought of that we've added so you'll know what you're seeing. People don't expect it. So that I'm going to tell you, you're talking about it with the seller, and I'm adding that we need to it be more inviting to the realtors who come to see our homes. I
Yeah,
got a
not just the realtors, even the consumers.
and the
So
consumers.
Marcy and I are looking for real estate right now. And she is a consumer who works around the real estate space, is seeing some people do professional photography and also will take the time to label every photo for what it is, which makes her life easy. And when it's not done that way, she's like cranky. I can't figure out the flow, etc. Had an agent yesterday who followed up on just they're doing the reverse prospecting. Is it your model to always do the reverse prospecting? Reached out, your client's interested, and here is my walkthrough video. Actually doing the work to sell. Is it your standard? Kim, I saw you're up, and then Jeanette, you're next.
So as you mentioned the 3 Ps, as you said that, all I could think of, how about answering your phone? Like phone being another P, and then Celeste went and said it. Almost every day, I either call agents, whether it's reverse prospecting or lead gen or anything else, and I usually average 30 to 40 calls. I'm surprised if 2% answer their phone. And those are real numbers. I'm just blown away. Like, answer your phone, you'll make more money.
Absolutely. And by the way, we're talking about this one, and it's one of my personal favorites that I would love all of you to do and make it a standard. One of the P's I do, the fourth P, is I prospect every single day looking for buyers for my sellers and sellers for my buyers. And I do that between 9 and 12 in the morning. So I want to let you know between those hours, I will not answer my phone. And if I do, I want you to fire me. Imagine you told every client when you prospected and you actually did it. And you had those conversations to build your business. You look for buyers for sellers and sellers for buyers, because kind of that's what you do for a living anyway. And you let your consumers know that's what you do. And you tell them, if I answer during that time, fire me. How many of you think your consumers will test you? So now, what is your subconscious telling you between those hours when this thing does its magical little ring? You're going to avoid it like the plague. You can actually gamify your standards and get other people to support you if you'll just share them. It's why we have the accountability rooms. We're gamifying. It's why we're up in those accountability conversations. So you guys can actually play at the level I know you want to at your heart that currently your standards aren't letting you. Jeanette, what do you got?
Well, I have a couple of things on that. I'll come back to your a question about that. What in terms of the standards, I agree with you, Ryan and Kim, and everyone else. I have always done that. I've always done professional photos. I almost always stage. There's a few times I haven't. So I can't say it's a perfect record. I always have a book about the house in the house. And I've had it with all the disclosures, and it's kept up to date. So the disclosures in the book are the same as the disclosures that are online. And I have those disclosures online for it as well. So that I've had so many people tell me how helpful that is. What I'm realizing is I'm not telling the sellers what I'm doing. I'm doing it. I've been doing it for so many years that I forget that it's different, even though I get reminded regularly by the realtors. So what are the things that we are doing and we're not telling the sellers about? So there's a way of showing how I have an upper game. And yes, I agree with the staging. I agree with the photos. Even my leases have some level of staging and have some level and have professional photos in them, because that's my standard. And they come back to me with that. Russ, a quick.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Russ.
So standards are how you're actually going to build your business rather than just maintaining a job. And so a couple of things I want to give right out of the beginning of chapter 10. And then Ryan, I'm going to come to you because you hit what I was going to drop after this. I'm letting you drop it instead. I've got a mind-blowing revelation for all of you. There's a very high probability you're not going to reach your goals.
Mm-hmm.
But here is some great news. You're absolutely guaranteed to get your standards in everything, by the way, in your primary relationship, in the way your kids behave, in your income, in your business building. Your standards are going to set what really happens. And so many people I meet and many people I coach as well confuse goals and standards. So Ryan, brother, bring the heat on goals versus standards.
So this is taken straight from the chapter, guys. So it says, when you decide you want to achieve your goals, you achieve standards as a means of your thoughts of applying actions to them. Goals effectively become byproducts of how you approach your standards. If you're willing to tolerate something, you're probably going to get it. If you don't change your standards, your goals become irrelevant. So clearly define them, and other people will act to undermine them simply because they aren't clear or acceptable to you. Here's where I'm getting this, and I'm coming from a team owner. Like, if I want my team members to achieve more and I don't have standards for what they want, what we need to achieve, then I'm letting them down. I'm letting myself down. And you guys, if you don't have standards for yourselves, you're just allowing everybody else to tear you down. Stand up and become who you need to become based on your standards in life. I'm not trailer trash anymore. I'm a freaking gangster, guys. Let's go. Set those standards and become the person you want to become.
Ryan Van Ornum grew up in Rio Linda, California, for God's sake.
Dude, I'm like one of 4 people with all my teeth and a master's degree from that godforsaken city.
Here's the fun part. This standards, and he even dropped into the tolerate part. If you don't have standards, you don't know what your standards are, you haven't written them down, articulated them, know for sure, you're just living the other people's standards around you for what they expect of you. and how they interact you and how they treat you. By the way, because of this chapter, on the 9th and 10th in Dallas, when I'm up there, Ryan, do you think we're going to do a session on developing standards?
Let's do it. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely part of the content, bro, that we're going to do, because we're going to keep up in the game. And the other piece I want to make sure you hear from him that I dropped yesterday, your standards, if they're not written or articulated, they're still easy to know. They are what you tolerate. So if someone in your life, and I'm looking at a couple people in particular, if someone in your life is not treating you the way you should be treated, they're not treating your family members the way you know they should be treated, well, that's because of you and your standards. You're allowing. By the way, a lot of times your standards are where they are because you're allowing fear to lead. And so you're willing to lower your standards to, quote, avoid the fear or pain. I see Cher's mic hot. So let's go to you next, my dear.
Thanks, Russ. Gosh, this has been amazing. What a great book. I am an Ed Milet fan, and this just takes it one more notch into making this part of your core. At the very beginning of this chapter on page 126, goals start out as thoughts. And, you know, if you aren't into self-development or personal development, your thoughts may be from your surroundings or your upbringing from that early age, you know, that we've talked about in other chapters and books. So standards are the actions that propel you toward your goals. I know Ryan's already talked about this. But if you don't change your standards, then your goals are irrelevant. That's pretty powerful. And I believe that what's in our heart, what's in our thoughts actually comes out in our words and our actions. So at the top of page 128, it really made sense to me. Make those standards consistent with your self-worth. You know, it's evolutionary. It's in perpetuity. We can never stop or we end up going backwards. And so this has been pretty powerful in creating that core within us, right? It all starts in our mind. What you think about become your actions. And so we might need to reframe that or change that if we aren't taking the actions that are consistent with where we want to be. And I think we get caught up in a daily grind or a routine, and we forget, or maybe we're not curious enough to explore something. And I'm going to take this way, way, way back. You know, the market shifted around 2009, and many people might not have even been in the market that long. And one of the things that we did differently, my husband's a mortgage broker, and 21 loans in the pipeline shut down instantly. So he recreated himself, became one of the first providers of continuing education to realtors in the state of Texas. And I mean, it's crazy. We were in Rough Hollow, where no one would go. And if you know Austin market, Rough Hollow is like crazy, insane, amazing community. But back then, no one would even go show those houses. And it was standing room only to teach continuing education because people were so hungry for knowledge. And we also had a shift in MLS at that time that I noticed, which was we went from 7 photos to 12. And then we went to 20, and no one was adding more than 3 or 4 photos. So I wrote a course and I started teaching realtors all these courses and all these things that I found. And one of the most empowering things that I found that I think is relevant for today, as y'all are talking about photos and drone and things like that, the Photographic Journal had done a study and found out that one photo wasn't worth the old adage of 1,000 words. One photo was worth 864,684 words. And yet people were only doing the minimum, right? The P's, put a sign in the yard, pray, you know. And as I started teaching that, it became more and more relevant. So it's really crossed my mind recently that I need to research and find out, what is a drone photo worth in words? You know, what is this worth in words? And so again, it reverts back to your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Are you curious? Do you want to have a higher standard? Do you want to set yourself apart? So this has been a really great chapter for me, and I love it. And each one of you has added so much value to creating this in your core being, you know, of where is your next level of standard and continuing that in perpetuity.
I know for a fact all of you desire higher standards, or you wouldn't be sitting in this room. Okay, I know that. The real question is, are you willing to do the work, and are you willing to face the challenges that the higher standards bring? That's the debate and the discussion. And I know staying in this space, continuing to be around people who are growing, is going to help you do that. And Shira said actually two other things I want to make sure I touch on. Because she started off with growth, and all the things she talked about were her growth journey. And guys, there's only two choices. You're either growing or you're dying. There is no status quo. If you are not actively, like you do every day here, which is awesome, think about the other people that aren't in this room, though. I don't have the time to get better. I'm too busy. And we watch them go until they leave and job hop. What can we do as leaders to inspire others to grow like you are? That's the challenge. And the other fun part she brought in, the 2009 shift, which there's been so many different shades. It's so interesting how we, as people, and especially as real estate agents, the only time we use the word shift is when things are going down. And yet shifts are happening all the time in our industry, and we should be planning for the next market, not the current market. You should be working for the market 12 months from now, maybe even 3 months from now, post-election. The market's going to be different no matter what. And the only constant we have in our industry, especially, is things are always changing. Think of how many different things Shara brought into this room of changes she saw with technology, with agency, with the market. And so I want you to write one more thing down, one of my personal favorites from my previous content. Spontaneity is a conditioned reflex. Your ability to move with the market, to shift and to change, and to let go of your preconceived notions is something that you get a condition into you so you don't get stuck. Justin, what do you have, brother?
I've been half plugged in this morning, so hopefully this hasn't already been covered. But I've got on the bottom of page 129, if you're lazy, and go with the standards of the people, places, groups, and media in your proximity with you. You'll get the same things as everybody else. This isn't the way to your best life. That really resonates the concept of your net worth is the average, the 5 people you spend the most time with, your behavior, your habits, your standards are going to be that way. And it occurs to me that while I have set goals, I haven't always been super deliberate about setting those standards. I've heard it, but I haven't really had it resonate with me at the same level in the past. And you can go through life without, setting standards or have standards by accident, by association. But the standards, the outcomes are no accident.
Well, the author gives us these 9 steps, things to consider for how we can work on these standards. And again, we're going to be doing it live, Justin, in just under 2 weeks. So we're going to work through this process. So if you're going to be in that room, you don't yet have true grip on all the standards for all aspects of your life. Probably going to be coming back to the success wheel or one other so we can kind of categorize the areas of our life. And then what are your true standards for those? And we're going to dive deep on this, guys. This is a key component to a high level of success in 2025. And so by all means, if you're not going to be doing it with us, because y'all have lives going on, take the time to work pages 132, 133, 134, 135, and process how you can start raising those standards, which leads into the next content. Once you kind of know the why and the motivation, you can now move into the how-to. So I'm looking at my attendees. We got 2 minutes left here. Doug, you're hot. Jeanette, you're hot. Ryan, you're hot. We'll go in that order. What do you guys have?
I am having a little challenge, and I'm probably just not understanding the way the semantics is being used, but I'm seeing a lot of difference between goals and standards in this chapter. So can somebody help me with that? I just don't get it.
Absolutely. A goal is the dream, the vision, the what you want to achieve. The standard really is the behavior, the activity, the action that makes the goal happen. So many of us have uphill goals with downhill habits, which are based on our standards. I'll give you a great one. We have uphill goals to have $1 million business, yet we prospect 10 minutes a day. Because our standard is we don't want to have enough conversations. Our standard based on our fears, we're scared of talking to people. So the standards really, and I'll come back to, I think it was page 129, it's what you tolerate of yourself, Doug. Because you know, and this is the distance that happens with everybody. You know in your heart what you need to do to make those goals happen. You have a goal to have a passionate, fulfilling, intense emotional relationship with the primary person in your life. Yet your standard is to allow the phone to get in the way, to turn on the TV and do nothing, to not actually have those intense conversations. Maybe you're even afraid of having them. Does that help you understand the difference, Doug?
Well, I guess I've always kind of just considered that common sense. If I've got a goal, I have to have steps to get there. But
it's common sense. Again, though, looking in your life, looking in each decade, how often are you not actually doing the activity that will get you to your goal?
That's training.
And you're not doing it because the standard's too low.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll see people that eat anything and everything. They have all kinds of great food. They have a heart attack. And all of a sudden their standards change. No longer will they eat that way. A lot of times it takes heart attack or cancer to finally get someone to stop smoking. Now, they've known their whole life they shouldn't smoke, but the standard was, it's okay. I'm going to keep puffing away. I'm challenge you all, rather than waiting till the crisis happens, to change your standards now. Let's go to the revenue piece.
I'm just going to change that.
The moment you need the money, Doug, it's too late. Think about that. The moment you truly need the revenue, let's say it's a medical service for somebody, and you don't have the revenue, you don't have the dollars in your account, it's already too late. We all have dreams of more revenue, more income, more savings, zero debt. And yet our standards right now aren't having us do the activity to get there. By the way, notice I'm using that we, because I've now got bigger goals and the standards currently aren't getting me there. I got to raise my game too. So we're running over, and yet my Little friend Don Hobbs is here. Don, I recognize you from somewhere before. I can't place it. Can you
Oh
help
my
me
gosh, shut up, shut up. Shut up. Hey guys, I'm sorry I've been missing in action. We've got a lot of events happening, a lot of things going on, and I'm excited to see you all. And Russ, you have continued to raise your standards. Speaking to that, I was just looking at your website today. Congratulations on that. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Getting better.
No, I love the question, Doug, and standards are where it's all at. And Russ said something about you can wait till the disaster happens and then you can change. We can change by choice, but we can change by crisis. And we've got a choice, right? And it's much easier to do it one way, but for many people, they don't raise their standards until it's necessary. And I think that's really the key. Hey guys, next week we're doing the Make the Shift event. If you're not registered, please get registered. If you're interested in having people come with you, tell us and we'll figure out how to get them in there. Let me know how I can support you. And I'm going to be working tomorrow all day. So if anybody needs anything, I'm around. And Russ, thank you.
You're
for everything.
welcome.